So video B for rate of change in slope, and I can calculate and identify the slope of a linear equation. The slope of a linear equation is that equation's rate of change. So because we're dealing with straight lines, the rate of change and slope are synonymous in this sort of situation. In other words, the rate of change of this line here is that line's slope. So one thing I want to point out quickly is that in the equation y equals mx plus b, m is the slope number. So whatever m is, or whatever this number here is, that's the slope of the line. Just something for you to kind of keep in mind. And one more thing, if you imagine this line here as a pathway, and someone was walking down this pathway, if that person would be going upwards if they walked from left to right, the slope would be positive. But if that person were to be going downward following the path, the slope would be negative. So if it goes up left to right, positive. If it goes down from left to right, it's negative. So one way to think about slope is rise over run. You put the change in y, or the rise from one point to the next, in the numerator, and then the difference in the x's, or the left to right part of the path, in the denominator. So let's think about it like this. This little guy here, if he started at 0.32 and wanted to go to 0.63 here, he would have gone up 1 and over 3. So the rise was 1 and the horizontal movement was 3. We know it's got to be positive because we're going up. So m in this case is 1/3. The slope is 1/3 of this line. All right, here we go. So let's do a quick example using this rise over run method. First, determine if the slope is positive or negative. Because our little guy here has to walk up, it's positive. That's good to know. Select two easy points on the graph and figure out the rise and run between them. What I mean by easy points is we wouldn't want to pick a point here or a point here because they're sort of in between whole numbers and it makes it difficult to calculate and think about. So start by choosing 2 points that are easily identified. And these, I've already done that for us. We've got -3, 0, and 0, 4. Then write the rise and the run in fraction form. So how far does our guy have to go to get from this point to this point? How far up does he have to go? Well, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got to go 4 upwards, and he's got to go 1, 2, 3 from left to right. So m, or the slope here, is 4/3 because he rose 4 and ran 3. Rise over run. Same problem, different method. This method, I shouldn't say it's different because it does exactly the same thing, but it calculates the rise over run for you. So you don't have to worry about the little guy running up the line. It just does the math for you. You start by choosing the 2 points you're going to compare. So -3 and 0 for our first point, and then 0, 4. And you just remember you saw this equation in the last video. Just make, it doesn't really matter. This will be x1, this will be y1, and we'll make this x2 and this y2. It wouldn't matter if we made these the 1s and these the 2s. The math would come out the same. And then we just plug in the numbers. That's how easy this is. So y2 is 4, and we're going to subtract from that y1. And then we're going to put the x's in the denominator. So x2 is 0, and we're going to subtract from that -3. Now notice here, this equation, this formula, does the rise over run for you. The y's, by subtracting these y values, we're getting the difference in height, or the rise. By subtracting these x values, we're getting the difference in the left to right movement, or the run. So we're getting rise over run. And when we simplify the math, we know 4 minus 0 is 4, and then 0 minus a -3 is +3. So we get the same answer. So those are two possible methods. One method is where you just look at the points and write the rise over the run. But if that's not working for you, you can just plug them into this equation and figure it out mathematically. One advantage to this is you never have to worry about whether the slope's going to be positive or negative because the math will calculate that for you. One more quick example here. So first, determine if the slope is positive or negative. This is the rise over run method. Because our little guy would be walking down from left to right, the slope is, you guessed, negative. Select our 2 easy points and figure out the rise and run between them. Here are our 2 points. Well, notice the rise here is negative. We went down 2, and we know our slope's got to be negative. So I'm going to just start out with that. M equals a negative, looks like the rise difference here is 2. And then the run difference would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. So we get a negative 2/5 for our slope. Well, that's pretty sloppy looking. Let me fix that a little. So m equals a negative 2/5 because we went down 2 and over 5. Another way to know it's negative is we're going down overall. Let's use this problem, but let's use the formula method. Same exact line, but let's plug in the formulas. We choose our 2 points, -5, -3, and 0, -5. I'm going to make this x1 and this y1 again, just because it's easier to be consistent. And we plug in the numbers. So -5 minus a -3 over 0 minus a -5. Because our x2 was -5 minus our y2, and so on and so forth with the x's. Notice this is automatically calculating the rise and automatically calculating the run, the difference of the x's. So if we simplify this, we get one step that looks like this, and we end up with a -2 over 5, or a -2/5 for m. Okay? So both methods work. And you need to know how to do both methods specifically because of this. What happens if they don't give you the line to look at, but they just give you 2 points? Well, you could graph the line and look at the rise over the run visually. Or you could just take the 2 points, throw them in the formula, and calculate it and be done. And that's what I like to do because, yes, mathematicians are inherently lazy. So if we don't have to graph it, we're not going to. We're just going to plug it into the formula and calculate it. So in this case, I'll make this my x1 and my y1. This will be my x2 and my y2. We plug those things in and we get these values. And then we simplify. -5 plus 9 over 3, or 4/3. So in this case, m is 4/3. That's how easy this is. It's not complex. It's not difficult. You just have to think about what you're doing. And I want you to understand the concept behind this formula. This formula is not super fancy, okay? All it's doing is calculating the rise for you, or the difference in the y value. Remember, the y is that vertical axis, and the x is that horizontal axis. So it's calculating the difference in rise, and then we put the difference in the run in the denominator. Rise over run, guys. That's all there is to it. Best of luck to you. I know you're going to do great on the worksheet.